Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you for joining us on 107.5 FM, 580 AM. You know, when we have Lars Larson on, you're always trying to figure out how can I just set him up and get him rolling. And sometimes you
Go for it, Kevin. Set me up.
I know sometimes I just overthink these things, but by the way, how was SHOT Show?
I have to tell you something. It would be a different experience for me than for you. God bless you, Kevin. You live in a nice conservative area of America, so you don't know what it's like. What it's like is to leave the heart of liberalism, Havana on the Willamette, as we call Portland, Oregon, and the blue states of Oregon and Washington, where I live and where I work. I live in one, work in the other, and of course, you know that we travel throughout the Northwest. To leave this area and go to SHOT Show is like coming in from 3 hours of yard work at 105 degrees and to dive into a nice, cool swimming pool. I don't have a swimming pool, but if I had one, that's what it would feel like. It's that cool refreshment of all that conservatism. Veterans, active service members, people who make guns and knives and hunting gear, and people who do not melt like a snowflake when they see an offensive word.
Right. It's remember the old Nestea plunge, I would imagine.
Yes, the that's perfect, Kevin. The Nestea plunge. Now that dates both of us, but that's exactly what it's like. So SHOT Show was wonderful. Plus, even if it wasn't about things that I like to purchase, but we do a lot of shows that are things I like, boats, sportsman shows, but SHOT Show's the ultimate. Even if it wasn't that, the fact that I'm surrounded by people who've started businesses, who know what it's like to have signed the front of a paycheck, things that, let's say, Kamala Harris has never really experienced. Elizabeth Warren never really experienced. Hillary Clinton had never really experienced what it's like to go out, persuade people to buy your wares, then earn revenue, and then have to make a payroll every single month from those revenues and hope that you would make some money yourself by the end of the month. Because a lot of business owners, and I'm sure there's some listening right now, are saying, well, I'm paying my guys and gals to work hard, and someday I will make some money too, but my employees get paid first, my suppliers get paid first, but I get paid when everyone else has already been paid. That is a unique experience, and for everyone who owns a business, even one that's big and successful and has been around for a while, they understand what it's like to say, I have to make payroll this month. And Uncle Sugar gets his cut before everyone else before the owner gets his cut. That's the way it works. And it's a tough task. And it's why so few people are successful at business. Roughly 1 in 10 startups survives for more than 5 years. And it's why even after you're up and running, everybody who owns a business understands that you wake up in the morning, perhaps in a cold sweat. We're coming to near the end of the month. Payroll has to be made, whether I get a check or not.
Lars Larson joining us, LarsLarson.com, Lars Larson Show. Weekdays, 6 to 9 right here on KIDO Talk Radio. Okay, Lars, here we go. The government shutdown is over. The media proclaiming Nancy Pelosi queen of everything. Your thoughts?
I think that Donald Trump, and I said this Friday, but I think that Donald Trump caved. And I say that with the caveat that in the next 3 weeks, if I see something that surprises me, where I heard all weekend long, I was answering emails from people and posts on Twitter from people saying, Lars, you don't know. He's the master chess player, and he has some move up his sleeve. And I said, if that's true, I'll be happy to be shown wrong. But in the short run, he has caved. And the entire shutdown now, the longest one in U.S. history, which would have been worth it if we got something out of it, if the American people got something out of it, but it appears to have been for no purpose. In other words, he didn't accomplish anything at the end of that, and now he has effectively said in 3 weeks the government shuts down again if I don't get a deal. Well, I hate to say it, but Kevin, you and I both know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If he is expecting a different result out of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi after they've just been allowed to claim victory, and they really did win a victory, They stuck it out for that length of time. They didn't budge 1 inch, and Donald Trump was the first one to blink. Now, if he has a secret strategy, then that's great. But then you have to ask yourself, would the secret strategy have worked just as well 5 weeks ago if he had simply said, Congress has already told me no, the new leadership of the Congress has said no, so I'm going to simply declare an emergency and start building the wall. And I'm going to act on my own. Now, we know that's going to be taken to the courts. We know to a fair certainty that some of the lower courts will say, no, Mr. President, you're not allowed that authority. And they will stop the construction. And then the question is, does he tell the federal marshals, who would be the ones to enforce that federal court order? Because I've seen federal court orders enforced before, and they're enforced by the U.S. Marshals. If he tells the Marshal Service, stand down, we're going to build this wall, and Nancy and Chuck can watch the wall go up. And I've heard even people supposedly on our side of the aisle, like Jonah Goldberg of National Review, say, well, then what's to stop the Democrats from coming in and declaring a national emergency on insurance for all? We don't have a national emergency over health care in this country, and we never did. We have been taking care of people with or without insurance for decades. But when it comes to this situation, with literally 2,000 arrests per day on our southern border, when we have tens of thousands of children being trafficked across the border and sold into sexual slavery. I mean, you don't have to go very far into the numbers to say that sounds like a crisis. And in that case, it is a crisis that involves American national security. I think he's justified. Now, if somebody in a future time says, we have a national crisis over guns, let's declare a national emergency, which is the example Goldberg used in an interview this morning, I would say, no, where's the crisis? Gun ownership is going up. Violent crime is going down. Do we have a particular problem with one particular group of individuals who commit mass murders, and they are committing them at a lower rate than perhaps 20 or 30 years ago, although because of modern media, we're getting more coverage of it? Yes, we do. But declaring emergency is not going to change that, because we know that even in places like Great Britain, where private gun ownership is essentially forbidden, that people still commit crimes with guns. So the bad guys are going to get guns, whether you have really tough national gun laws or very liberal national gun laws. That's the only place I like liberalism is in gun laws. We have over 300 million guns in private ownership. That is up 50% from about 3 decades ago, and violent crime is down. The liberals see that as, I guess they just have cognitive dissonance when it comes to that, because they say, well, I don't understand why that is. And we say, we do. When you put more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens, criminals tend to choose other kinds of crimes to commit that are not going to put them at the front of the barrel of a gun held by a law-abiding citizen. So I don't buy the argument that if Donald Trump uses national emergency authority to say we're going to build a wall. And in fact, I've got an idea for Donald Trump. Do you know which part of America does have a wall on our southern border? California.
Right.
California has a wall. If Donald Trump were to say, if Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi and the rest of that bunch doesn't believe in the wall, we're going to provide openings. We're going to put some doors in, then we're going to let the doors go open. We're going to let this horde of illegal aliens, I guess we've got another caravan coming north of 12 to 14,000 people. We're going to let them flow through that part of the border while we're building a wall on the parts of the border where people understand what a real disaster this is for America. Because California can safely sit there with their senior members of their congressional delegation saying walls don't work, because California has a wall. It's other states that do not. And, I realize that the president isn't going to take a bold move like that. He is known for bold moves, but that's a damaging move to America. But I think the president should start using that rhetoric. If Nancy Pelosi doesn't think walls work, maybe we should tear down the wall that California has and build a wall for the rest of America, because it's very easy to say you don't need a wall when you already have one.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. KIDO Talk Radio. Catch him tonight at 6. All right, Lars, Roger Stone, I'm sure you've talked to him. We've talked to him. He's talking to everybody. Your thoughts on his arrest?
I think that it was done in the very provocative way that it was done. I've heard numbers from 29 to 36 agents sent at 6 a.m., dark 30, about the time you're starting your show, I figure, or the time you've already been on the air for an hour, to raid a man's home who's 66 years old and not exactly, a Chuck Norris ninja. So they send these people full battle rattle and semi-automatic weapons to take this guy into custody. And why did they do that? Because Robert Mueller's investigation has run out of gas. It didn't start with any gas to begin with because there never was any substance to the Russia collusion charges. But he now realizes, I'm coming to the end of this thing. I'm going to have to wrap it up. And I need to intimidate some people. I need to scare the daylights out of some other people so that they will start not singing in terms of confessions, but composing, as one of my friends puts it, because they don't, if the police pick up a low-level drug dealer, they want him to sing. They want him to tell them about his supplier. In this case, Mueller wants these folks to compose. He wants them to come up with a story, and if it's good enough, people like Roger Stone in his late 60s will avoid decades in prison that are effectively a death sentence. If they will not tell the story that he wants, then he has to squeeze someone else. Now, we've watched this pattern go on for some time. He squeezed Paul Manafort, didn't get much. Squeezed General Flynn, didn't get much. And the more of this that we see, the more Americans should start to question, well, then what's the point of this investigation? If the proof was so evident, and all of the people on the left would have told you 2 years ago, well, it's perfectly clear right there. Donald Trump was in cahoots with Vladimir Putin. Good. You've had somebody at work who spent more than 30 million American tax dollars. He has employed dozens of top lawyers, investigators, and the like. He's had subpoena power. He's had grand jury power. That's a formidable set of tools. And what has he produced with it? Has he produced any evidence that Donald Trump was in collusion with and conspired to change the outcome of the election using a foreign country? And the answer is no. And if you didn't have the proof, if you didn't have the proof at the beginning and you don't have the proof after 2 years of investigation, and all you've done are these crazy raids, let's raid a private attorney's office. Let's threaten, for instance, Michael Cohen, the president's lawyer, who it sounds like did commit some tax crimes. And Mueller says, well, let's give him a pass on the tax crimes in exchange for some testimony that implicates President Trump. So far, it doesn't look like Robert Mueller has anything at all. So the more colorful these raids become, the more it seems that Robert Mueller is stretching for anything he can get so that Americans are not going to look at this whole investigation and say, you spent 2 years and 30 or probably 40 by the time they've done, $40 million on this, and you produce nothing?
Lars, finally, and I just feel bad for our friend Dr. Corsi.
I do, too, because Jerry Corsi is a nice guy. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's a very good a guy, has written some great books, has come up with some great insights into politics over the couple of decades I've known him through the business. And when you go to people like that and say you will spend the rest of your natural life locked in a 6x8 cell with a bunch of other thugs and criminals, that's a real threat. And Corsi has stuck to his guns and said, I'll tell the truth, but I am not going to make things up for Robert Mueller. And we begin to sound like a third world dictatorship. If you read, Kevin, a news story this morning that said that the current ex-president of Venezuela, who doesn't like the fact that the National Assembly has appointed a different guy as president, he wants to hang on to power. If you found out he was grabbing people off the streets using armed men and then throwing them in deep, dark holes and telling them that they must give a public confession that implicates somebody to allow the former president of Venezuela to keep his power, you'd say, well, that's what they do in third world dictatorships. That is not the way we do business in America. Not at all. And the minute we start doing that, we really are run by a third world dictatorship. And I think my friend Ann Coulter is right. We really are fighting for the survival of this country. Because if we start to say that whoever's in charge can employ all of the assets of the federal government to go out and harass and indict and jail on thin charges people and then demand either tell us what we want to hear or we're sending you to prison for a death sentence, that is a banana republic. And we're not that. Not yet.
Not as long as we have you, Lars. We so appreciate you, brother. We'll catch you tonight at 6, and you're always
Thanks
working.
very much, Kevin. God bless you and everybody who listens on KIDO.
All right. Take care, Lars. We appreciate you. Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up next, your thoughts on the government reopening. Tom Brokaw saying people need to learn English, and Roger Stone. All that before Glenn Beck. Stay with us. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And be very careful. A little foggy out. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Don't forget Dave Ramsey following Glenn Beck on KIDO Talk Radio. Joe in Meridian, good morning.
Hey, Kevin, how are you today?
I'm still employed, brother, and you?
Doing great. God keeps blessing me every day. Just excited to be in the great state of Idaho and with all the great people here.
Agreed.
Hey, I wanted to just check in with you on this border wall issue with the government reopening today. And my thought is that President Trump is going to wait out 3 weeks and then give people an opportunity to put something on the table and work together. And if that doesn't happen, he's going to declare a national emergency and put the wall up. But I don't know if it's a bad thing to wait 3 weeks out because it's very difficult for somebody to say he didn't try. I think that's what he's trying to show is that, hey, we've waited a long time. We reopened the government. We gave people an opportunity to put something on the table that's a compromise. They haven't done it, so we're going to take action. And I think that's going to go over better with American people than just doing that right up front. Even if he had the right to do it, it was a questioned right, and I think would be a different type of action that's been done in the recent past. And so, in my opinion, I think it was a smart move. I understand where I'm coming from and that it could turn out he doesn't do anything. I don't think it's a total loss at this point. I think it's too early to call.
Well, I think he's going to let the narrative roll, and I agree with you on that, and I think he should declare a national emergency. The challenge here is you have just the coverage is 98% negative.
That's right. Anything he does, they're always going to paint it the wrong way. So if we go off of a declared emergency a declared win by the media, that's been the way it's been the whole presidency. They always declare wins for the opposite side of the president's party. So can't really. I mean, it's frustrating, but they're going to celebrate losses or nothings as wins. So that's just the way they work. But in this particular case, I think he's got people behind him because we're tired of seeing lives basically being risked, and that's just not the people coming across the border. It's our law enforcement officials as well, and that's just not the right thing to do. So.
Joe, thank you for the call. Thank you for listening. Appreciate your thoughts.
Have a good one.
Thank you. You too. 580-5436, 580-KIDO, our time 828. We'll get to Russell and Meridian in a second. Russell, please hang on. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Bob.
7-0 Gabbard.
And let's go to Russell in Meridian with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, Kevin?
Yes, Russell. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Thanks a lot. Look, the prayer against evil, I wanted to call and define the evil. I spent 10 years in Montenegro, and I teach in a socialist country. It's former Yugoslavia, living there. I taught English, and I taught English to some prosecutors in the Montenegrin government. I was standing in front of them like an idiot. I didn't understand law that well. And they said, look, Russell, there's a difference between law and justice. And it was like a light hitting me, okay? What's happening in America is that the law is being used in a totalitarian way to oppress the people. There is no justice being sought. We say that America is a rule of law country, but that's an attempt. It should be an attempt to get justice for the people. In all these things we're seeing with Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi, the wall, Pelosi in Congress, all of this, they don't care about justice. That is the fact. The left wing claims they have a corner on justice, but the fact is they don't care about justice. They only care about power. They're exactly like the socialists and communists of Eastern Europe. I mean, I'm a Cold War guy, and let me just say another evil. Let me define it, okay? Communism is Satanism, without a doubt, and I can prove it. So, that's what we need to pray against. And I appreciate your callers, and I appreciate you, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Russell. We appreciate you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Do want to remind you, coming up in the spring, once again, we will be promoting our schools, Securing Our Future on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And we would love to have some schools. We're taking applications now. Very simple. Just email me, Kevin at KIDO Talk Radio. That's Kevin at KIDO Talk Radio. We'd love to have some of our preferred old favorites and some new schools. And whether you live in Canyon, Ada County, Gem County, we would love to be a part of it. By the way, a great friend of mine, Kevin, who's a great conservative, takes issue a little with our continuing to champion the repeal of the grocery tax. Kevin, how will we pay for the unfounded Medicare initiative if the grocery tax is repealed? Legislators met last week. They learned that if they fund Medicare, they will have to defund many other areas. We should be pushing them not to fund the Medicare Medicaid initiative. Great point, Kev, but let's go back to the endless campaigns we've had for 3 or 4 years where every politician running for office darn near guaranteed that they would repeal the grocery tax. Can't we keep them at their word? And if you can afford to buy the big HP campus, then why can't you afford to take care of the folks? I guess that's why we have elected officials. More on that coming up next. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Don't forget Sean Hannity after Dave Ramsey. Jared Halpern joins us, Fox News Radio. Jared, good morning.
Good morning.
So here we have it. The government shutdown is over, at least for a little over 3 weeks, or a little under 3 weeks.
Yeah, about 21 days, and that's the big question. Now, Congress loves a good deadline, so here we are with the clock reset now until February 15th, and I think there are a lot of questions about what this committee is able to come up with, a proposal not only that can get 60 votes in the Senate and win approval in the House, which I actually think is the easier task for this committee. The hard one's going to be, will they come up with something the President Trump would sign, particularly if it does not include any new border construction. We'll see what they come up with, if anything, but if the last 5 weeks are any indication, it seems like the two sides are still pretty far apart on this issue. I mean, had it not been for the president finally accepting what had been offered to him 37 days ago, there was no sign that this shutdown was going to end.
Jared, can you define just the movement of power from, one would argue, the president to Nancy Pelosi, at least with this story? How did that happen?
Well, I mean, obviously the Speaker of the House is going to have influence. There are 3 ingredients, as you know, to getting something signed in the law. That's got to pass the House, it's got to pass the Senate, it's got to get the president's signature. Well, nothing's going to pass the House unless mostly Democrats are on board with it. Elections have consequences. So obviously this was the first big showdown we've seen now in this divided government, this divided Congress. And, it had a big impact, didn't it? I mean, 35-day government shutdown, 800,000 people not knowing when they were going to be paid next, a lot of financial uncertainty. The CBO out this morning with a report that says the U.S. economy lost about $3 billion. It won't recover during the 35-day period. Obviously not a ton of money, but it shows, if this thing were to drag on again, what the economic impact would be, not just for federal workers, but the overall U.S. economy. So, listen, I mean, I think that there was a question about who would blink, Democrats or the White House, and at least in this round, it was the White House.
Jared, I hear they're going to pass a resolution to end all shutdowns. Have you heard about that one?
Well, there are different pieces of legislation out there. Democrats and Republicans each have sort of come up with different proposals. Listen, I don't know how seriously that they're going to get a vote. I know obviously it's a big deal for guys like Senator Kaine, given who he represents in Virginia, a lot of federal workers in the state of Virginia. He's put forward a proposal that essentially would fund everything except the executive branch and the legislative branch during a lapse in government funding. There is a proposal, I don't remember from who, one of the Senate Republicans, that essentially would not stop funding anything, but like on a weekly basis would reduce by another 1% government output, like the expense output. We'll see. I don't know how much attention those are going to get. Well, it is an interesting debate to have, though. And obviously, I know there's been questions about, well, maybe Congress shouldn't be paid. There's a constitutional amendment that they would have to get around. Congress cannot affect their own pay. That is unconstitutional. So, you know, a lot of proposals out there, but I think they're a long way from getting, you know, into the conversation where we're talking about meaningful legislation.
Speaking of meaningful, I guess the investigative committees will be starting the process this week. Everybody will get their committee assignments, and we'll get on to that.
Yeah, one of the big hearings, the first one is tomorrow. This is in the House Armed Services Committee, chaired by Adam Smith, Republican from Washington, and they're bringing in a couple of Defense Department officials to testify on the military's role on the southern border. So this would be among the oversight that you can expect from Democrats. They have questions about some of these policy decisions, how the decision was reached, how these decisions from the White House are being implemented. And so tomorrow, this is one of the hearings that we'll be keeping an eye on, is this hearing in the Armed Services Committee, trying to better understand what it is that the military is being asked to do along the southern border.
Jared, we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too. Jared Halpern joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get to your calls. Tea Party Bob joins us, publisher of the Gem State Patriot. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today? Finally got rid of your cold. Thank you very much.
Well, that's reassuring.
Took me a week, but what the heck?
Well, you're not as young as you used to be.
No, that's for sure. But we try to stay fit as a fiddle.
Sure.
You know, tell your friend Kevin that they are taking the money for Medicaid out of the cigarette fund, okay? That's where they're going to pull it from. I'm going to keep reminding your listeners every chance I can how the Rhino Republicans have once again lied through their teeth to get elected. If they wanted to find the money for this repeal, they could certainly find it. But they don't care about the lower-income citizens of this state. They do not count when it comes to electing rhinos. That's the job of the lobbyists and the elites. You know, our politicians seem to have a problem with telling the truth and being honest with their constituents. And we've had very little of it in the last 12 years, and I don't expect anything different for the next 4 years. You know, it seems we're able to find money for just about anything except a way to ease the tax burden for those in a lower income bracket. What I want to know is, when will the electorate take retribution on these rhinos and throw them out of office? You know, and I want to thank Lars, because he pretty much agrees with my expectations on this deal for the wall. And I'm going to stick to my original thought that this 3-week reprieve is going to be just a tactical move by Trump to get the government employees paid. And when that time is up, he's going to enact the powers of the president to declare a national emergency. And I think that this is going to be taken right to the courts, but at least he's going to be vindicated for the fact that he did take it to that extreme. And I think he's going to win in the Supreme Court, as I said before. In any case, the necessary parts of the wall are going to be built. This crisis on the border is real. And we all know that the only ones who don't know are the dumb Democrats. And they'd like to see another 3 or 4 million refugees walk right across the border. And just a quick word on Howard Schultz run for president. I think he should stick to selling coffee, because you have to look at the policies he's instituted at Starbucks over the years that he's been in charge. And he has made quite a few blunders in the years he's been in charge. On Bloomberg, there's a billionaire bozo who just wants to take the guns. And if he gets elected, you can bet your bottom dollar that he's going to be right there in front of your front door looking for your guns. You know, the Democrats are in such disarray that they could have as many as 20 candidates in the 2020 election. You know, that's a good thing for Trump. I think he will be able to concentrate his efforts on getting the economy moving again and getting us moving forward instead of backwards, where we have been for the last few months. But people vote with their wallets. And if we have a good economy, I think he's got a good shot at becoming our president for another 4 years.
We shall see how that plays out.
Thank you very much for your time again, and I hope you have a great day. Another great show, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Tea Party Bob. Have a great day.
Take care.
All right. Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Morning. I didn't start out as a Trump fan. When he ran for president, I favored, for instance, favored Senator Ted Cruz, and I was critical of Trump. But he's one of the few politicians that far exceeded my expectations. I've become very much a solid Trump man, and I think that Ann Coulter, who started out as I think it's a little bit early in terms of deserting the ship and calling him, a cave-in. I think that he's setting the scenario. I think that Tea Party Bob has got it absolutely right. I think he's setting up the scenario so that he can go to the national emergency powers, and it'll become more apparent to a lot more people that it's the Democrats that have been the obstructors all along of getting a wall built, and I think that it also undermines the mainstream media, which I think is the main reason why there's no leverage on the Democrats.
Look, how in the world can you fight people that are out of work, working for free, or shutting down the entire East Coast? You can't fight that.
I mean, that's the practical point, because you see, what you're going to have is what you did have, one sad sob story out of the mainstream media. Look at these poor players, and look at this maniac Trump who's starving these poor federal employees and whatnot, and we really don't need this wall. And trumpeted ABC, NBC, and the thing is, they get their trip lines, or whatever you want to call it, their main lines, and they all stay on the line. Whether it's back in Bush saying gravitas or whatever, they all come with a standard line, and then all you have to do is flip all the stations, CNN, ABC, and they're all spinning the same. The same lines. I mean, that's exactly, and I think that this had an effect on public opinion. This poor starving, and they played the same game again. In the case of Newt Gingrich back when Gingrich tried to get some reductions in the federal budget back in '95, and ever since it scared the Republicans in Congress to death.
Right, but it really comes down to the president is on his own. The bottom line is that this should have been done when the Republicans had both houses of Congress, and Nancy Pelosi can come in now and say, I'm not doing anything, and she gets a pass. They hail her as the queen of mean, and when they say, even when the president goes, okay, how about this? No, a wall is immoral. Never mind that you have Democrats saying, look, a wall is not immoral. Let's get this thing rolling. Again, you have Nancy Pelosi now having the high ground.
Well, the problem was that you had Ryan, who, there's a reason why he was put as Romney's running mate. He's the quintessential Rhino Republican. I mean, Ryan was not going to move on it. He hated the president, and of course you had McConnell not doing anything, and I think that you would have had some difficulties even with Ryan, even with Ryan in there. I'm afraid that's the case. That's why a large number of them retired, because they were they were in a sense going to be. I mean, they were caught in the crossfire between the Democrats and Trump on this thing. They wanted the usual game, the Washington game as usual. I wouldn't be surprised that one of our rhinos here, Stallings, might in the end retire in this mess. In this mess, he's one of the ones that I think that behind the scenes is not hot for a wall. But I mean, he's not going to say so publicly. But I think he would play a role in subverting it behind the scenes. He will never come out publicly against it.
All right, but, Hank, thank you for the call. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Patriot Ray joins us now. Patriot Ray, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, sir.
Good morning, Brother Kevin.
Good morning, sir.
You're awesome. We appreciate what you're doing out there. Here's my thought on the president as far as his caving. Okay, he gave in at this time, but I think his strategy is, and if he uses it right, could win with big numbers. and that is that he needs to play and have somebody, some of the friendly media, which is not too many, play the montage of all those people who supported a wall until actually someone wanted to build it. And then all of a sudden it's immoral. So those things need to be played over and over again, back to back. We supported it back then, but now it's immoral. And they need to explain why it's immoral today and wasn't back then. So we just got to keep the pressure on the media. We got to keep the pressure on the president to stay strong and continue to go forward. And when the 3 weeks comes up, as they continue to want to do a shutdown, then it's going to be on them because he's tried everything he can to get it built. And he's not asking a lot. He's only asking for $5.7 billion when it started out at 20, and he conceded to take it down, and they didn't accept that. And then he gave other concessions with DACA, and they didn't accept that. So they don't care about anything.
No,
their power.
There is nothing about that. And you have the media cheering them on.
Oh, yeah, and that's what's wrong. So that's why he needs to get out there and keep this stuff public. And stations like you and some of the other friendlies out there, some of the ones you have that are on the afternoon, they need to get out and play that montage or find more of them like it and play those over and over again to let the people understand that this is what's really taking place. The hate for this president and the hate, as far as I'm concerned, for America, because they're trying to destroy it. They're trying to make us a socialist country, maybe even as far as a communist country to go into those realms. But when they do, they're going to find out that they're the ones that are going to be on the short end of the stick because history proves that those who go through that extent end up being killed in the long run. So we just have to keep pressuring on the history of things and remember that. I'm old enough to remember the Cold War. I'm old enough to remember a lot of the things that have taken place in my life. And I tell you, we need to stand up. We need to stand together. We put our arms together and fight back from these people who don't know history and don't want to learn it. And the schools are not teaching it. So God bless, stay fired up, and we're going to just keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Patriot Ray. Coming up, we'll hear from Pro-Life and Bill with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And blessed to be a part of your day, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Pro-Life joins us now. Good morning.
Yeah, Roger Stone was arrested just a couple days ago, and they had a SWAT team go to his house to arrest him. There was 29 people, and I heard there was 2 boats of water. And that is just, I called our Congress people, both the senators and both of our congressmen, and asked them to make a public comment about that and go to their particular chamber's committee where they discipline the FBI because somebody is not doing the right thing about that. The FBI should have said no to the Mueller team. We're not going to put those kind of people in there and do that kind of an overkill. And so that's my comment about that. And then I want to say that Trump needs to put troops border to border, clear across the border, sea to sea, close it all down, and then not listen to the courts when they tell him he can't do that, and then go through the impeachment process. He needs to do that before close to 2020. So that's my comments for a couple subjects today.
There we have it. Thank you, Pro-Life. Traffic and weather together.
I'm News Channel 7's Eric Everett.
And we go to, is this MT, Mr. T in Fruitland?
Yeah, Kevin. Hey, I'm actually a truck driver, travel from coast to coast, and I listen to you all the time. I love what you're doing. I love all the folks, the conservatives. It's great. I grew up listening to you guys. I don't get to go to church at home anymore because I'm gone all the time. And I listen to a fellow by the name of Les Feldick on YouTube. And he's basically just got the King James memorized front to back. And it just blows my mind at what's going on right now today, happening. It's written in detail right there in the Bible. And I just wanted to let folks know about Les Feldick. A lot of you have probably heard him and seen him. Just hop on YouTube. He's a farmer, rancher. He is not minister. He'll tell you that over and over, but he's been doing this for 30-plus years. And, I mean, I've been going to church since before I can remember. Assembly of God, Bible Church, non-denominational,